I will be talking about MDMA, LSD, and other hallucinogens. MDA on the street is known as Molly or ecstasy. It's a little more common of a name to know what it is. LSD is a synthetic acid. The real name for it is lysergic acid diphthalmide. I think that's how you pronounce it. And like mushrooms and stuff like that could also be in that category. Um, it's kind of hard to find information on how much MDA is being consumed or being abused in the U.S. and South Dakota. I kind of went through all the sites, kind of tried Googling it. I couldn't really find any percentages or anything, but I did find percentages on LSD. The 10% of Americans 12 and under have used LSD in their lifetime. 1% have used it in the last year, and 0.2 have used it in the last month, which is some pretty high numbers. I feel like there's a lot, probably somebody you've known or know somebody that has tried it or tried any of these drugs. Um, for street use, ecstasy is made illegally in labs with lots of ingredients, including amphetamines and caffeine. Um, the drug is sold as ecstasy, it might not only be MDMA at all. They could be using bath salts, heroin, cocaine, ketamine, cough syrup, anything that's not actually the drug that they're saying it is. They're kind of lacing it. They can put fentanyl in there. Um, but it's usually bought on the streets. But it can be bought in clinical use. It can be prescribed, but in clinical settings, it's actually known to be safe. It's not a harmful drug as long as it's taken the correct way. Um, Ecstasy is most popular around younger males between the ages of 18 and 25. Um, it's more used for kids in middle school to high school. It's more of a concern for them because their brains aren't fully developed and the drug can alter their brain chemistry really bad. The way they think could put them in a state of psychosis. It could cause a lot of mental health disorders. Um, it's stated that in 2002, a survey showed that 0.6% of eighth graders 13 years old said they used ecstasy in the last year. It's more the LGBTQ are more likely to be using ecstasy within the last 30 days than any other person. They are also more likely to report its harm from its use, so they're more likely to go tell a healthcare provider or a cop of what happened and what was wrong with it. Um, People like ecstasy because it causes a euphoric feeling, a happy feeling, energetic, you're alert, and closer to others. It usually affects within 45 minutes. People report increased sensitivity to light, sounds, touch, and smells. These effects peak within 15 to 30 minutes and last an average of 3 hours. It's potentially addictive, but more research is needed. There's not a whole lot of research on it done to how addictive it is to a human. It shows that animals will self-administer it, so that is an indicator that it's has a highly addictive potential. Some negative effects from it is the muscle cramps. You get muscle cramps, depression, heart failure. In high doses, it can cause death, especially if it's being laced with other drugs. It can be very, very fatal if you're not knowing how much you're taking. Some long-term effects of taking MDA or LSD in long amounts. It can cause changes in verbal, visual, and short-term memory. It can also make changes in your reasoning and recognition part of your brain. If you're using it for long-term effects or using larger and larger amounts, which usually happens with substance abuse, it can also cause conditions like psychosis. But though psychiatric conditions are usually rare from MDMA, but if you take large amounts, it can be caused pretty easily. It has a negative effect on the immune system, such as like if you have excessive stress going on, it can cause the same effects as that. In South Dakota, ecstasy and LSD is a Schedule 1. It's the lowest schedule, so there's 5 schedules of drugs, narcotics, stuff like that. It's a substance under a Controlled Substance Act which means you could face jail time with it in your possession. So if you get caught with it, you're more than likely going to go to court and have jail time or even prison time, depending on the amount you have. If it's your second offense, or different things like that, you're distributing it, or you're purchasing it, or anything like that. Schedule 1 drugs are substances classified as having high potential for misuse, no current medical use. So none of the drugs under the Class 1 are used for medical use. Although now that law has changed, because marijuana is now, it's a Schedule 1, but it now has medical use. You get medical cards. A lot of doctors prescribe it. It's a very bad safety hazard under medical supervision. As a result, doctors, PAs, stuff like that don't usually prescribe Schedule 1 drugs. One of the most common punishments is jail time. It may range from 1 to 10 years in prison, fines of up to $2,500, and possible license suspension. So it's really not worth it to lose all of that. The exact penalty would depend on a number of factors, such as is it your first offense, how much of the substance you possess, and whether you were distributing it, among other considerations, what else you're caught with, under the circumstances of your caught. So the impacts it has against social problems and substance abuse in local communities, it increases the drug distribution and drug usage in the area. It increases the crime acts because they might be on something and not in the right headset. So it has an increased ODs or medical needs and harmful effects from the drug. Some other things that I found related to activities associated with the drug is the drugs themselves, like MDMA, are not so bad. It's when they're mixing them in with more addictive ingredients, causing you to crave more, such as using bath salts, heroin, cocaine, ketamine. I talked about that earlier in my speech. And some of the psychedelic drugs, such as like mushrooms, I can't say the actual word, and MDMA, ecstasy, show that they can actually be therapies for treatment-resistant depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, as long as they're used in the correct way.